Right, so about a week before the FAQ, I went to an event in Southampton. I was supposed to produce this video talking about that event, talking about the lists, but then something happened, and so I had to push this back. I basically had to redo it all. So what I'm going to be doing this time, I'm going to briefly go over the event itself. I recorded something before I went to the event about the lists. I'm going to talk about the lists that I brought kind of in depth. I'm going to talk about the missions kind of in depth. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check that out. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at the event and I'm going to look at it in the light of the update that went through, if the lists would change, the kind of lists that they might be changing to, and the kind of effect overall that those changes might have had on those lists. If you're watching this, then you are one of the 30% of people who's managed to make it more than 30 seconds into my video, which means you actually care what it's about. So if you want to see more videos like this, there are a couple of things that you can do. You can give me a like, you can give me a subscribe, put a comment down in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about the video itself. And if you want to give me some more support, you can come and join me on Discord. You can join my Patreon. You can join me as a channel member right here on YouTube. But for those of you who are already watching, a big thank you for myself. And let's get back to the video. As you probably guessed, I'm bringing Skaven. You remember that I took Skaven to Warhammer World. I went 4-0. That was pretty good, that event. I'm very happy with it. It wasn't this exact list. Like, if you take Skaven away, it was basically this that I brought to Warhammer World. We had Ratogre with gun here, just going gun, I'm going to shoot you. We had Spikeclaw, because they're basically running Spikeclaw Swarm. His three guys, hungering, festering, lurking Skaven. A couple of Storm Vermin. In fact, it might have been this, in fact. It was probably just one Storm Vermin because I only have one hero to be able to protect. We're running Creep Kin Whisper because he's really good as a character piece in general, and Skritter. So Skritter's pretty neat. And this was the list. I was kind of happy with it. My main problems actually were with this Rat Ogre. Now, this Rat Ogre is fine. It's got the gun, which means that it's going to do like 2 shots at straight fire, doing 3-6 damage. I was like, okay, yeah, this is great because it's got those 2 shots. It can shoot twice. It's got an ability that allows it to shoot again, so I can effectively like delete chaff units from across the board, and that'll be fine. In practice, that didn't happen, and I was really disappointed with the Rat Ogre. So we're not bringing the Rat Ogre today. Instead, we're bringing what I would like to think of is my platonic ideal of a Skaven list. Let's talk about it a little bit, right? So we got Skabic going on, Skabic Plagueseeker. We're still running this, so this combo is still pretty good. So 1, 2, 3, him, right? So this combo of Spikeclaw, Hungering, Festering, Lurking Skaven, he gets to bring these 3 back to life, which is really, really good. I like that. I liked that last time. I like having that potential to bring guys back. They'll get like 10 wounds. They're pretty fantastic. We are also going to be bringing a pair of just like normal clan rats with spears. Reason for that, they are 70 points, so they fall under the Skaven Resurrecting Baffle trait. So that's totally why we're going to be bringing them. Similar reason, we're going to be bringing Skritter out of Skabic's Plague Pack. He can be resurrected, and he's got some pretty neat abilities going for him. We're going to talk about those abilities in a second, but that's why we're bringing him also, even though he's like 6 wounds and bad. But that's kind of what we're going to be doing. And then we're going to be bringing a pair of Storm Vermin with shields and halberds. There's a shield on the back. Main reason for these 2 Storm Vermin, one, they're toughness 5, which I really like. They're 10 wounds, which I really like. But they've got a really powerful double called Bodyguard that allows them to basically protect my heroes. So that's why we're bringing them. The whole idea is if you have a hero and one of these is within 1 inch, you can use Bodyguard. That means this hero cannot be targeted, which is great when we're talking about things like Vexmore, things like Fulmar Crushes, all these stupid things that can just delete my heroes. Being able to actually protect them is pretty neat. In combat, they're not bad. They're like 2 attacks, strength 3, but doing a 1/4 damage profile, so it's kind of okay. It's got range 2 as well. The range 2 works really well with Skabic, and it works really well with this guy because they all have range 2, so they can kind of sit outside of threat range and they can kind of poke their way in. So that's pretty good. And then lastly, we are running Creep Kin Whisper. I really like Creep. So he's 75 points, so he doesn't get to be able to resurrect. The model has a net, but he doesn't have a net. This isn't the Stop Creep Kin Whisper model. This is my conversion of him out of a Skaven Assassin, the Shuriken from the Skaven Assassin, a net from Tarantulas Brood. Came out pretty well. I like this conversion. What he does have going for him, though, is that he's got a triple where he gets to roll a bunch of dice, and if he beats the target's toughness, he gets to do 3 wounds for each dice he does. So it's only 6-inch range, but it's kind of this weird clutch triple that I really like. So this is the warband. How are we organizing this? So we're going Dino Hammer Shield. So the idea is, when you're building a very large Skaven list like this, with no rat ogres, you want to be able to maximize the amount of stuff that you can bring back to life every time, right? So you've got Dagger, Hammer, and Shield is going to go like this. Because these 3 cannot be resurrected. He can resurrect his own guys. So the idea is you want one of them in each deployment group. So what that means is that as long as he is on the board, there will always be 2 other of his Skaven to be able to bring back to life. If he comes on turn 1, there's going to be 2. If he comes on turn 2, there's going to be 3 of them, right? So that's how we are splitting his resurrects. And then the warband itself has its own resurrects of 70-point fighters. So that's why we put 1 70-point fighter in each deployment group as well. Something like this. And then on top of that, we have the 2 Storm Vermin. The Storm Vermin are specifically there to be able to tank for the heroes. So they have to basically go with the heroes. And that's kind of how we are going to be setting this out. We got Dagger, we got our Hammer, and we have our Shield. Now, why am I bringing all of these pieces? I've talked about the Clan Rats already, how they fall within the 70-point resurrect. I've talked about Skritter, how he falls in the 70-point resurrect. He also gets a whole bunch of abilities that I have written here. Look, there are a lot of abilities, okay? We have a lot of abilities for this warband, and it's kind of this weird juggling act. Like, it's not an easy warband to run by any means. There are a lot of abilities going on. These 2 have their own triples that they want to be using. He has a triple that he wants to be using. The Storm Vermin have doubles that they want to be using. So everyone has abilities. And it's really, if you want to get the most out of this warband, it's really about managing those abilities and managing your dice and how to get the most out of your resurrects and your super speed that you've got, because everything's movement 6. We all have that amazing Skaven reaction that allows things to move away. So we all have that. But Skritter is what I was talking about. He gets Disgusting Appearance, which is basically -1 attack for anything that is targeting him. He gets that, and Skabbik gets that, so that allows him to survive just a little bit longer. Something like Vexmore, for example, swinging with 2 attacks, right? He's got to put dice in it to make 3 attacks. If Skabbik uses Disgusting Appearance, he's got 20 wounds. Vexmore basically needs to crit twice on his 2 dice to be able to kill him, which kind of works. The interesting thing about them also is that they've got Befoul the Land, this guy, and Skabbik. So on a double, they get to pick an objective or a piece of treasure. They get to taint it, and it does a bunch of passive damage. So you've got a little bit of passive damage going on through Creep, through Skritter, and through Skabbik. Skabbik, of course, has his Unctuous Citations triple, like the best triple of any Skaven character that they have, basically. You can basically pick a fighter with Skabbik's playback and remark, so basically him or Skritter. That fighter gets to make a bonus move action or bonus attack action, and then he gets to copy it. So on a good day, he'd get 4 attack actions, he could get 4 move actions, he could go 2 move to attack, he could go 2 attack to move, whatever. So on something like a treasure mission, he could use his triple, go move. There are missions in here that you have to do a loot action to loot the treasure. So he could do that, he could go move, loot, pick up the treasure, and leave. That's something totally within Skabbik's power to be able to do. So that's why I bring him. He's basically the best Skaven character in the game, effectively, and that's why people bring him. We have talked about the ability to protect our guys. We've talked about this guy. His stats aren't anything fantastic, old Spikeclaw, but he does have Resurrect. So on a triple, he can bring any of his guys back. So again, when you're playing this, I said it's about managing your dice and managing your triples. A lot of it is managing what dies and when. So this guy and this guy have to die, ideally on turn 1, so they can come back turns 2 and 3 through the battle trades. These 3 guys can die separately, but they can't come back through the battle trades. So if only one of these dies, you can't battle trade it. You have to use a triple on the next turn. And then the rest of them can't come back to life. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of abilities going on. It is a much larger warband, which is something I am very comfortable with playing. But we're going to look at the missions now, and we're going to take a look at what that actually is, because I didn't actually read this mission pack until like this morning, which, yeah, I know it's on me. I haven't practiced. I've done some basic analysis on it, so we're gonna check that out, and we're gonna see what exactly is going on with the missions. This is it. We are playing the Plunder Pack. It is kind of inspired by Ferocious Gnarlwood. There's some stuff in here from Kill Team. All sorts of things are in this pack. The interesting quirk about this pack is before the game starts, you have to choose your route to victory. And the idea is that you choose kill, you choose control, and at the end of the game, so every one of these missions is going to be tracking 2 different scores. You'll be getting scores for killing things and scores for capturing objectives or getting treasure or whatever. You'll be tracking those separately. And then at the end of the game, depending on if you chose kill and control, you'll be getting extra points depending on what you did. So for example, I'm very fast warband, but not much kill power, so I'll probably be choosing control for the entirety of the event. And for each one of the control missions and each victory point that I get in control at the end of the game, I'll basically be scoring more, and that's how I'm going to be doing this. The idea is that it's supposed to give different kinds of warbands, different routes to victory, depending on what opponents you're playing. Apparently, you can pick this after you see your opponent and after you see your opponent's warband before the game starts. So you can kind of tailor it. You can fix it per game if you really wanted to, but I think personally what most players are going to be doing is they're going to be, or I mean what I've done anyway in particular, is I've chosen how I want my warband to play and what route of victory I want to take. It just so happens that I like playing bigger, swarmy warbands, so control is kind of a natural fit for this. But it may well be that I'm playing against a warband that requires me to take kill in order to get more points on kill, and then just go and score control objectives as normal. That's what this thing does. There's also a very small catch-up mechanic in here that on turns 3 or 4, whoever's losing basically gets an extra wild dice, so that could be impactful. I guess what you could do is you could attempt to, well, I mean, they don't allow you to score any points turn 1. So turn 1 is always going to be a draw. Then something is going to happen on turn 2. So if you can come out of turn 2, say 1 point lower than your opponent, get that extra wild dice, be able to fuel your abilities on turns 3 and 4, maybe that's a way that you want to go for this. That's always a possibility. But let's check out the missions. What I've done is I basically boiled all of this down. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, right? I have boiled all of this down to what you need to do. So they're going to pick 4 out of the 6 missions that we have. I'm going to give a little bit of critique on this pack, like after I go through what the missions are, and maybe it's something that you will spot also. So you've got Disrupt the Ritual. So 2 things you can do, right? So you've got control and you've got kill. For control, you'll go get objectives. There are a whole bunch of objectives in the middle of the board. Use an action to get treasure, and then at the end of rounds 2 and 4, you get a victory point, basically, for every treasure you have. Real easy. And then kill fighters, and then you get an extra point if you kill fighters with treasure. Okay? Not all of that. Not all that difficult. A few interesting quirks. So unlike the Tangled Gnarlwood pack, when you are scoring at the end, this thing, you score for kill as you do it, which means that if you resurrect fighters, you don't get to break the kill objective. All of these missions, what you'll see is that you get 3 points for kill and then 3 points for control. And so we got to bear that in mind, because that's something I am going to come back to later. Next, we have Stab in the Back. So you get objectives. So we got basically 4 objectives on the board. You've got your central objectives, and you've got your 2 home objectives. And if you're on this side of the battlefield, you're trying to get your opponent's home objective. If you're on this side, you're trying to get the other one. So you're going to get 1 point for capturing the central objectives, and then you're going to get 3 points for capturing your opponent's home objectives. There's no capping. Unlike normal games of Warcry, you're not able to capture this on turn 1. So there's no going into turn 2 already controlling an objective, automatically capturing it. That's something they want to avoid in this. And then on top of that, you have kill part, 1 point if you kill fighters, so 1 for every fighter that you kill, and then 1 victory point extra if you kill fighters on home objectives. Again, both of these, 3 per turn. So 3 per turn, 3 per turn. That's the best that you can do. Vicious Encounter, there's like a no-go zone around the edge of the battlefield. If your fighter ever finds itself at the edge of the battlefield at the end of the turn, it's going to take these 3 points of damage. It's pretty minor. I've seen much more damage done on these kind of effects. I think it was like a White Dwarf mission or something. There was a mission pack released in White Dwarf that had a similar mechanic, but it did way more damage than just D3. No objectives this time, but we're playing table quarters, and this one's simple. So you get 1 victory point per turn if you get 1 table quarter, 1 more if you have more than your opponent, and 1 more if you have 2 quarters. So easy. And then for kill, 1 per kill, and then 1 extra victory point for every enemy ally. So anything that doesn't have your opponent's faction rune mark, you're going to get an extra victory point for. So normally allies, but it could also include things like thralls, it could include things like monsters, that kind of thing. So again, fairly straightforward. Shards of Emberstone is an interesting one. Now, this one is very much like the Rumble Pack. We know exactly where this came from, right? So the Rumble Pack, if we all remember, there was a mission where you walk up to an objective, you do an action, you loot the objective, you get a treasure, you run away. So that's basically what that was. This is kind of a riff on that. So instead of that, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going to objectives. We need to outnumber our opponent on these 3 objectives. And if we outnumber our opponent on these objectives, we get to loot them for an action. You're going to gain 1 victory point per loot. You're only allowed to loot twice per turn per objective. So you can't just like get a massive swarm onto a thing and go blah, 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 blah. I'm going to get a whole bunch of points. You can only get 3 points per turn anyway from doing this. So there is a hard cap to the amount of points you can get from these objectives. And then the second time any fighter loots an objective, so we're going to have to be tracking this per fighter. They get a treasure that they cannot drop. So once they have that treasure that they cannot drop, they're unable to loot these objectives again, which is interesting. Because they have treasure, it'll be -1 move. No, not -1 move. It'll be -2 move, whatever it is. Put a minimum of 3. No flying, no jumping, all that kind of stuff. Interesting thing that it mentions that even things that cannot have treasure will hold this treasure, and they won't be able to drop it. So stuff like beasts, gorges, all those kind of things. That's how that works. And then you got the kill section of this. Kill fighters 1 victory point. Kill fighters with treasure 1 extra victory point. Always 3 points that you're going to be scoring off the primaries, off both of the objectives. Then there are 2 more. We got lightning strike. 5 objectives here. For this one, you just have to hold objectives real easy. And then for the kill portion of this, you get 1 for killing a guy, 1 for killing 2 guys, and then 1 for killing more guys than your opponent. That's basically it. And then on top of that, you get an extra 2 victory points per turn if you're tracking wounds that have been killed. But unlike the other ones, so this is more like the Rumble Pack, where because you are tracking wounds, you get to bring guys back to life, and they no longer count for your wound tally. But still, you're only allowed 3 points per turn for the primary, kill, and control. Last one, we have Shrines Set Ablaze. Real easy. So you get 1 victory point for every objective that you have, and then you get 2 victory points for every ablazed objective that you have. The idea is what happens is that every turn, depending on who has the initiative, you pick an objective, it gets set on fire, and then you get more points for that. And on the kill side of the mission, you get 1 victory point for each fight that you kill, and then 1 victory point extra for any allies. So what we talked about before, right? Some allies, thralls, all that kind of thing. Anything that is not part of your faction. Maximum 3 points, maximum 3 points. So I said that the fact that you only ever score a maximum of 3 points per turn on this for each of the objectives, so the control and the kill objective, I said that was important, and that basically comes back to this point I'm about to make. What that means is that essentially all of these missions are kill missions, because if you can kill your opponent, you're going to be generating points, and you can go and get the objectives and force people off of objectives, right? So a medium-sized warband, let's say 8-man with a little bit of kill potential and a little bit of objective potential because they got the guys, they'll be able to score really well on this, and they'll be able to punch things down. What it does not help is larger, faster warbands, because those warbands will naturally want to go and claim objectives, but they won't have a lot of kill potential. And that means that it's very unlikely they're going to get points via kill. They have to go via objectives, but if your opponent is getting points for both kill and objectives, then they're basically going to win the game, right? There's this, I think Dan said this, every mission is basically a kill mission with extra steps, unless you actively go out of your way to make it an objective mission. And the reason is, of course, because if your opponent's fighters are dead, they cannot capture objectives, they cannot hold treasure. So there's a lot of that in this, and because the objectives are balanced, it really favors a more killy warband. Because what you really want to be doing is denying kill points from your opponent, and even if your opponent gets all the objectives, you're only going to be drawing. So all it takes is 1 or 2 rounds where you manage to get an objective, where you manage to get 2 objectives, and kill one of your opponent's fighters, and that'll win you this. So with that in mind, and bearing in mind I should have looked at this earlier, I think actually going back to, like, I have no time for it now, but going back to the Rattogan might actually be a better shout. But in terms of my warband, how are we going to do this? I'm very much going to be focusing on the objective side of things. My Resurrect basically becomes a liability when it comes to the kill portions of missions, so he is going to have problems. But what the Resurrect does allow me to do is to almost guarantee that in later turns of the game, I'm going to be able to get the objective portion of the mission as opposed to the kill mission. So I think that's how we're going to have to play this. We're basically going to have to play keep away, run away as much as possible, try and avoid combat as much as possible, and just go for the objectives and starve my opponent of kill points whilst also being able to grab objective points. I think the star player in all of this is going to be our boy Skaven. The reason being is that what he can basically do with his triple is nuke any chaff on the board, right? And he's going to be the equalizer. He's going to be the guy that runs into opponent's chaff, kills them, kills one turn after turn, and gets me those kill points whilst the rest of Warband just like dicks around. So that's how I think we're going to do this. Right, so let's start with the participants and average tournament points. Most participants, we have Skaven and Seraphon. Seraphon continue to be very popular. Seraphon are weird. They're one of those warbands that are kind of middling in their win rate, but people love to play them. They got amazing models, so I don't begrudge them that. It is worth it that one of those Seraphon lists was like a double slan list, so that was interesting. But yeah, I think overall it was a pretty decent spread. Of course, we're going to see Skaven there. Skaven basically before the FAQ and arguably after the FAQ still. If you haven't seen it, go check out mine and Toast's tier list where we basically put Skaven in S tier again. Go check that out, and it kind of makes sense if you're playing competitively. That's probably what you would have been bringing before. I think now Skaven lists change somewhat, but I still think they're very good. If you look at the average tournament points here, you need 16 minimum points to go 3-1. We've got Ruination Chamber, Darkoath, Spyre, Tyrants. They all managed to do that. There were a lot of Skaven players came just under that with, 14.5, 15 points. So that's pretty good on them. Z calculated okay. If you want to see where people came, this is how it went. There was a weird quirk of the pack where every mission was basically your kill points versus your objective points. And the idea is at the beginning of the game, you would say, right, I want to focus on kill, I want to focus on objective. And what that would do for you is it would give you bonus points depending on which one you specialized into. Because I'm running a very large Skaven list, I went into objective all the time. I basically won my objective game all the time, and that's what allowed me to win. So that's why also I have a lot, which is rare for me. My victory points are pretty high. One thing I do want to talk about, though, with this event, I think events in the UK are getting slightly spikier. Now, if we had like a Warhammer World event, for example, and I know this was only 23 players, Warhammer World events typically range between 35 and 40-ish, but we're not that far off. I think you'd see a bigger spread of different kinds of lists. So we did have, I said already that we did have a large spread of lists of all sorts of different things. But if you look at the composition, most of the Skaven lists had some combination of like Vexmore, Formoroid, Myrmidon, whatever. All the Skaven lists apart from mine had Rat Ogres, and there were, again, a couple of slan in there. So when we're looking at the proper top-end competitive things that were in place before the FAQ, it makes up most of the event. It's possible that players in the UK, maybe it's just a feature of that Southampton event, but it's possible that players in the UK are looking at their lists more and taking some of these stronger elements, especially things like Vexmore, especially things like Formoroids, definitely Rat Ogres, because Rat Ogres are great. So that's just an interesting observation that I made throughout my time there. Now, let's look at all of the 3-1s or better Number one, first place, I came in here with my Skaven. What will you notice about the Skaven? It's 11 fighters and it has no rat ogres. So in the light of the update that went through, this list basically goes through completely unscathed. Also, no pack masters, because previously pack masters were 70 points, you could resurrect them. So this list comes in unscathed, which is great. So there's every possibility that this is one of the best lists in this format, especially into a slightly more objective skewed list. But this thing can go into kill missions as well with almost little problem. It does have weird tricks with the Storm Vermin to support Skabic and to support Scritch. So I think it can do it. Like, I went into this thinking, okay, I'm just going to go objective, objective, objective. And I got a bunch of points from kill as well. Because when you consider the kinds of lists that are coming, even if it's a tools and smalls list, for example, there are smalls to kill and you can kill them, and you're generally fast enough to keep out of the way of some of the bigger things. If I ran into something like one of the Slans, I would have probably had problems because my guys will not stick around for all that long. But overall, I'm very happy with the way that this list performed. It's got a ton of abilities. I've talked about it already. It's got a ton of abilities, 2 separate forms of Resurrect to kind of try and manage. It's got AoE destruction effects through Scritter and through Skabic, making things blow up. That was one of the big features, actually. I think it was my second game. We played the mission, which basically had exploding objectives. And what I was doing was going, okay, well, I'm just going to pick that objective is going to explode, do D3 damage, and then through the mission is going to explode, do another 2 damage. So I did a lot of chip damage through Skabic and through Scritter, and I was pretty happy with that. I'm very happy with the way it performed. And yeah, completely unscathed from the update, which is great. Number 2, Bartosz. He came over from Poland. We had 2 players come over from Warcry in Poland. We had Bartosz and we had Dorota. They both came over. They did pretty well. They came second and third, and I played both of them on the way up. Bartosz was my finals game. He played Darkoath. He brought Fulminary Crusher. He brought Vexlore, Gunnerbrand, and then a bunch of Darkoath Marauders with Spears. Marauders with Spears pretty good. 70 points. 10 wounds, toughness 4, 3-3-1-3 profile at 2-inch range. They're pretty good. They didn't manage to do a whole bunch of, like the Darkoath thing, which is I use my double, get oath, kill a thing, get super oath, get additional abilities. That didn't feature in our game. Though we did have Gunnerbrand fight Skabic, and they basically blew themselves up, blew up each other. Gunnerbrand was pretty good with his Carve Path to Glory. He used that to great effects to knock out Skabic. He did say that if it was painted, he would have preferred to take a Darkoath War Queen, just because of the amount of Marauders that he is bringing. Taking something like the War Queen with this extra movement ability on Marauders would have actually been pretty good, and it's kind of blendy with its 5-4-2-4 profile. I know it's the same as Gunnerbrand, so she can't spike as high as Brand can, but she can still do a whole bunch of damage, and she's T5, so she gets to survive just a little bit longer. Overall, this list goes up by 10 points because you have the increase in points of Vexmore. If he decided to, he could replace Gunnerbrand with a War Queen. He saves that 10 points. He can run the same list, but he won't be able to spike as high with Gunnerbrand running as that kind of third damage dealing piece. Third place, it was Dorota. She came in with her Skaven. I played her in round 3. She was bringing a very classic Skaven list before the update. Skabic Plague Seeker, Creepkin Whisper, a pair of Rat Ogres, a bunch of Packmasters, and a bunch of Clan Rats. This list overall goes up by 25 points. And this is where really I think the update is going to hit hard these kinds of Skaven lists. Because when you've got each Rat Ogre going up by 10 points, that's 20 points overall. Then you've got Packmasters going up. Now, Packmasters have gone up to 75, which means they can't be resurrected. Does this mean you drop them for Clan Rats? Maybe. There was only one Packmaster here over the Clan Rats, but even if you don't, that's another 5 points that you go up. I still think there's a place for one Packmaster because the synergy of Rat Ogres is very good. But this is 25 whole points that you have to find. Maybe you're going to drop it from Skabic's Blessings. That's always a possibility. But the reality is, if you're bringing something like this, you're probably going to downgrade Creepkin Whisper to a Clan Rat, or you're going to take one less guy. That's the only way around it. It puts you from 8 guys down to 7 guys if you wanted to play like that. Maybe you only bring the one Rat Ogre. That's also another option. Overall, we know this is a very good list, but I think it gives Skaven players some serious things to think about going up just 25 points off the bat. Fourth place, we have Anthony Yolaine. He came, this is the same list that he brought to Warhammer World. I think it was at the beginning of the year. It's the one that I beat with Tarantulas Brood, but only barely for the finals to take that event. It's very good. We're running Ruination Chamber. We've got the Reclusian Prime. We've got 3 Reclusians, 4 Griff Crows. It's a large warband when you're considering that it's basically a Stormcast warband. It gets to use all those Griff Crows to use Ancient Aura. Ancient Aura, as a reminder, is their reaction. If a fight within 6 inches uses an ability, they basically get to roll a dice. If you beat that roll, they turn off the ability. So that's very, very good. And what he's done is he's given all those Griff Crows Fortitude for another 4 wounds. That's 15 points across the board for all of them. It makes them deceptively tanky. I had problems killing Griff Crows with the Spiders, but the Spiders haven't got a great stat line. But yeah, deceptively it makes them tanky. They do get the Ruination Chamber battle trait, which allows them to teleport. So what he normally does is, when you look at his shield, you see he's got the Reclusian Prime and just 1 Griff Crow. He normally teleports the Prime. Actually, what he does is he looks at whoever's coming on round 2, and he teleports them. And that's basically it. So it's a very good list. Reclusians are wonderful at toughness 6 with a 4-4-3-5 profile. They do have that double that gives them the bonus strength to allow them to wound things on 3s. They're very good. They're like little annihilators. 5th place, also going 3-1, we have Ishak. And Ishak brought Spyre Tyrants with a Pit Champion, Pit Fighter with Spear, Pit Fighter with Net, Pit Fighter with Shield, basically 1 box. 1 box Spyre Tyrants with an Ogroid Myrmidon also in there. Now, the thing the Spyre Tyrants have going for them are those Pit Fighters with Nets. They're 65 points, they're 10 wounds, they have a decent damage profile, and they got the nets to go with that. So that's very good. They have damage in there from the Myrmidon, from the Bestigold Destroyer, and from the Pit Champion. It's just a very classic Warcry list. It hasn't changed in points at all because it's not using Vexmore. He opted to go for the strength on the Myrmidon to push it up to strength 6. I think the main reason for that is to guarantee wounding Stormcast on 3. Well, most Stormcast. Not when we're talking about Reclusians, because they come with toughness 6. But even then, there's a big difference between wounding a Reclusian on a 5 and wounding a Reclusian on a 4 with something like a Myrmidon with that 40 damage profile. So I think that's very good. From the points changes, nothing really happened. But I can safely say that with the counter changes, I think stock in Pit Fighter with Net has probably gone up because it's got a lot of attacks. It's got 4 of them. Now it doesn't have to worry about getting countered. Yeah, it had 10 moves before, but that really doesn't help when you're rolling 4 dice into a thing and you roll 4 misses. You could go down to probably half your health when that happens. Now that is less of a problem. So yeah, maybe we could see more Spyre Tyrants. Bestigold Destroyers are still very good. They still got that 3-5-3-6 profile with 18 wins. So maybe we're going to see more of them coming up. And we have the last 3-1 playing Kruleboyz. We have Ennis here. He's got a whole bunch of stuff. Beast Knob, Hope the Howler, a Gut Ripper, Killer Boss with Flail, Jags, Shank, Bolt Boy Boss, great. Another Gut Ripper, so 2 Gut Rippers, and a Pop Grot. This list in total goes up by 5 points because he opted to not basically spam Pop Grots. So it's just the 1 Pop Grot that's gone up from 45 to 50. It can absorb the points very easily because this list anyway was 995. So you got by 5 points, you have 1,000. So that's pretty good. Just to look at a couple of the options that he chose. Shank, of course, is one of the best fighters in Kruleboyz. I want to say one of the best fighters in the game, right? It's a 55-point toughness 4 net is what it is. That's what you buy it for. Yes, it's got 6 wounds, but having that toughness 4 really does help it in certain situations. The other options that he went for the Bolt Boy Boss. Bolt Boy Boss, again, very popular piece in Kruleboyz. Arguably speaking, if you are going to be running Kruleboyz as kind of this weird Kruleboyz soup mix, which I know this isn't necessarily, but because this is just pure Kruleboyz. But if you wanted to run it as Kruleboyz soup, generally you'll be running the Bolt Boy Boss. It has the triple that allows it to crit very easily. So that 3-4-1-4 suddenly does a lot of damage from 15 inches away. He did decide to go with the Killer Boss with Hacker and Rusty Flail. It's good. 190 points for 28 wounds. That's good. It's got a good profile. It's got a real interesting double, actually. that allows it to basically make stab grots and give them a free move or an attack action. Very similar to Scuttling Symbiosis that I used a lot in Tarantulas Brood. I've been theorizing a build which is like killer boss and grots, and then using the killer bosses like I used the guys in Tarantulas Brood. So what you do is you activate the killer boss, use the ability, give them a free move, then you wait, activate them again and on free move to get a whole bunch of extra action economy. That's something you can do. That's not something that you can do here because there are no stab grots. But I think overall it's just got a decent, solid profile for the 190 points you are paying. The last interesting thing here, really interesting thing here, rather, is Jags the Bleeder. He is only 90 points. He can use the ability if he's managed to wound someone. It's only a double. And then at the end of the battle round, you're going to roll a dice for every wound allocated. So it basically, in effect, says however many wounds the thing has, do half as many wounds more at the end of the battle round. It allows you to spike really, really high, which is great when you look at this warband and you say, okay, where's the actual damage? Outside of the killer boss and some plinking from the Bolt Boy boss, there isn't anything that spikes super high. He does have a beast knob in there, which is great as an ally. It's got an awesome profile, but it's kind of slow. It's got some very interesting control abilities, but he doesn't have anything like, I don't know, a Gut Lord or a Mega Boss or anything of that equivalent. So having an additional ability like Leave It Bleeding on just a 90-point model that he can push into a thing, attack, and then use it, I think is pretty good. Right, that's all the 3-in-1s. Like I said, here is the final standings. Overall, what has the update really done to the 3-in-1s over here? I think anything that isn't Skaven got off very lightly. It seems like they can absorb the points into their list building. Things like Bartosz's Darkoath, they would have to make some changes, but as he was only taking Vexmore, I think things are a little bit easier. But I don't see his warband, like 8 fighters, a bunch of normal guys, basically a Vexmore and a forward. I don't see it as being overly problematic. What it does do, and what I think this FAQ did well, is just apply a little bit more list building pressure onto those warbands that would want to use those common units. So if he was playing Slaanesh, for example, Slaanesh Cyberites, and doing a similar list with Vexmore, maybe with Slink Slash instead, there would have been a lot of changes to make. But as he was just playing Darkoath, I think it was actually fine. The real thing, as I've said, is with the Skaven lists, how they've gone up a whole chunk of points. So now, if you want to run double Rat Ogre, you are going to have to find the points. You are not going to be able to resurrect Packmasters anymore. So you'll probably reduce the amount of Packmasters that you're using to 1, if any. You'll replace them with Clan Rats. Clan Rats are worse. They're way worse than Packmasters. So these are all things that you need to take in mind when you're doing your list building under the new format. Overall, though, I'm really happy with the event. It was a lot of fun. I like the missions. I like to try out the event pack a second time. I think it's not without its flaws in the way that it went. I know I said during my analysis of the actual missions that I thought that it was basically a smash pack with additional steps. I still claim that. Now, the kind of lists that I thought were like 7-8 man lists, where I can dance around them with my 11 fighters, and I can kind of act like a scalpel, throw Scabic in there, kill a thing, jump out, do all sorts of things, and kind of avoid damage. If I was playing against something without obvious chaff, let's say, to kill, then I would have found killing things a lot more difficult. I never played anything above 8 fighters, but if I was playing like 9 fighters or even 10, I know warbands seem to get kind of big and kind of chunky when you hit 10 models. But let's say I was playing against 9 fighters, maybe a little bit more mid-rangey with a little bit more damage that could just like knock out a Clan Rat, for example, in one shot. Then I would have probably had a little bit more trouble in scoring those actual kill points because I can't just throw guys into things. But as it was, it went okay. And yeah, I look forward to playing more of this in the future. I will end on the fact that I do think the lists are getting better. So maybe I'm going to have to reevaluate the kinds of lists that I bring to events myself. But that's me for another time. That's future iTime's problem. But right now, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.